Hello, hello, hello. Let's try to do this podcast or whatever. I want to talk about male and female dynamics. There's a kind of war going on between men and women right now, and I want to shed some light on it. I want to put in my 2 cents and give you some clarity, at least what I consider to be clarity. So basically, the war goes like this. But before I even talk about how the war is being fought and where the lines are drawn, let's talk about the impact of this war. The war in male and female dynamics that's going on right now. As a society, not even culture yet, just society, we're not reproducing at replacement rates. There are numbers to back this up, though I don't have them in front of me, so I'm shooting from the cuff based on what I know. I think the sustainable replacement rate is around 3.5 kids per family, or something close to that, for a society to continue. If we don't hit that number, the population starts to decline, people start dying off, and the population gets smaller. That's a big issue. It's interesting because I was born in 1980, and I remember when people used to worry about overpopulation. But now, that's no longer a concern. In fact, in a lot of countries, the population is below replacement rate, and they're starting to panic. Now, there's a solution to that. But I'll talk about that later. I don't know how much I can cover in this first podcast, but really what I'm trying to do is start the conversation. I want to throw my hat in the ring. So, the war between men and women, it's happening because they're basically not getting together. They're not getting together. They're not getting married. They're not having kids. And the big question is, who's to blame? Who did what to whom? Well, women have a grievance, and their grievance is this. They say they've been oppressed by men from the beginning of time, that men have always held power, and they've used that power to oppress women. They say men have held onto power and haven't given it up. So that's the core grievance. Women say they've been oppressed by men. They say men oppress women and even oppress other men. That's their argument. Now, what are men saying? Well, some men agree with the women. Let's just say that straight up. Some men agree with them. But then there are other men, many others who say something different. I'm just going off what I hear. Some of these men don't even seem to fully understand what's going on. Honestly, it's understandable that they don't. That's part of why I want to talk through this, so we can try to figure it out. But many men are saying, I don't know about you being oppressed, but I feel oppressed now. I feel like I'm being attacked for being a man. Why? Because now there are all these labels, terms like toxic masculinity, and people saying that competition is bad or that aggression is bad. These are things that are traditionally part of masculinity. So there are people out there, some trying to explain to men, to women, even to the government, what's really going on. Because it's not just personal anymore. It's reached the level of national policy. Remember the replacement rate issue? Yeah, governments care about this now because it affects the future of society. As for me, how I got into all this, well, I noticed something when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. I realized something wasn't right, and I figured it out through, of all things, movies. I'm a big movie buff. And there were a couple of movies that came out during my youth that just didn't sit right with me. One movie that stood out, I remember this because I used to work at Blockbuster, was called The Best Man. In the film, a group of college friends reunite for a wedding. One of them, a former star athlete, is marrying a woman he used to date. But it turns out she had previously slept with his best friend, and he didn't know about it. When he finds out, he loses it. Understandably. Now here's what stood out. I was dating a girl at the time and brought up this plot. I said, I didn't like that movie. She asked why, and I explained, because the guy still married the girl, even after finding out she had slept with his best friend. She said, but they were broken up when that happened. And I was like, that doesn't matter. She's no longer pure. She didn't understand why that bothered me. But here's the thing. Many women don't understand how men view relationships, especially when it comes to exclusivity. Men value exclusivity in a partner. When a woman is with a man, it's not just physical, it's deeply tied to his sense of pride, security, and legacy. So, let's talk about male and female dynamics, specifically their nature, and where the confusion is really coming from. And listen, I'll admit I'm guilty of this too. For the life of me, I still don't fully understand women. I know why they do certain things, biologically, emotionally, but I still don't get it sometimes. It just doesn't always make sense to me. A lot of what I'm going to say, you've probably heard from the red pill or manosphere communities. I'm partial to those spaces, but what I really want to do is explain things clearly, give you a real understanding of what's happening. Let's rewind for a second. What we call dating today is fairly new, and that's part of the problem. We're acting like this modern model of dating has been around forever and is the ultimate way to find a partner. That's just not true. Back in the day, men and women came together out of necessity. They needed each other to survive, especially women. A man could survive without a woman, sure, but he couldn't reproduce. And for most men, there's a biological or spiritual desire to have a legacy, someone to carry on their name. The only way to do that was to get married, have children, and raise a family. A man would marry a woman, she'd bear his children, he'd protect her, and he'd share his resources. That was the arrangement. Now, I know to some people, that sounds transactional, and honestly, it was. But I believe everything in life follows hierarchical structures, and those patterns repeat themselves at different levels. Nature, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, created a system with male and female dynamics that serve a purpose. When you go against that system, you get chaos. And honestly, that's what we're seeing now. Relationships at a fundamental level are transactions. You give me something, I give you something. That doesn't mean one side is giving more or less. It's about mutual agreement and commitment. Once you agree, you're in. That's the deal. It's not about feelings all the time. It's about responsibility. Now, I get it. That doesn't sound romantic, and women don't want something that rigid. They want to feel like they're being loved for who they are. They want a man who sees their uniqueness, their personality, not just their role as a woman. They don't want to be seen as just one of many. They want to be the one. So here's where the contradiction kicks in. A woman wants a man who is completely devoted to her, someone who loves her so much he can't live without her. But at the same time, she expects him to be logical and emotionally detached from everything except her. So with her, he must be emotional. But with everyone else, he must be stoic, strong, and rational. That's confusing. It creates a kind of double standard. Here's the weird part. Nature facilitates this contradiction. When men fall in love, they really do stop thinking clearly. We try to understand our partners, even when their issues don't make any logical sense to us. A woman might be upset about something we didn't even know was a problem because she never said it. And now we have to figure out what we missed, why she's upset, and how to fix it. It's like solving a puzzle with invisible pieces. You didn't do something she wanted, but she never told you to do it. And now you're in trouble for not doing the thing you didn't know she wanted you to do. Still, if you love her, you try to console her. You say, I understand how you feel, even if none of it makes sense. And that's love, for a man. So like I said earlier, back in the day, relationships were built out of necessity. Men and women needed each other. They worked together as a unit. The idea of romance came later. You didn't fall in love first. You got married first, and then love developed over time. You learned to love each other after making the commitment. You grew into it. But then came the Industrial Revolution, and it changed everything. Men started going out to work. Women stayed home with the kids. That shifted the dynamic. But it still kind of worked, because the mindset was different. Women understood that men were out there gaining resources and bringing them back to support the family. Men have always been resource gatherers. Women have always been resource transformers. That's a symbiotic relationship. But here's the kicker: exclusivity. This is where things get really touchy. Men need exclusivity. They need to know that the woman they're with belongs to them. Not in a possessive way, but in a trust-based, biological way. A man doesn't want to be with a woman and not be 100% sure her child is his. That's embedded in our biology. Back in the day, you didn't have DNA tests. The only way a man could be confident that a child was his was by knowing his woman was modest, pure, and loyal. That's why virginity was so valued. Not because men were obsessed with controlling women, but because they needed certainty. So that's why men historically valued virginity. It's about certainty, about knowing that if he puts in the time, effort, and resources, he's building his legacy, not someone else's. Now, we live in a time where we have paternity tests and modern science. But emotionally, instinctually, that desire for exclusivity is still there in men. That's why modern hookup culture is so uncomfortable for many guys, especially when they think about committing to a woman who's had multiple partners. Let me be real. A lot of men are thinking, if Bob got access to her body for free, no commitment, no responsibility, why should I now have to pay the full price for something another guy got for nothing? It's not about being insecure. It's about logic. It's about fairness. Men are wired to think in terms of value exchange. If the most valuable thing a woman can offer a man in a relationship is access to her body and the trust that comes with exclusivity, and if she gave that away to someone who didn't earn it, how does that make a man feel? Like a fool. Now, I'm not saying men should expect every woman to be a virgin. We all have pasts. Life happens. But there's a difference between someone who's been in a serious, long-term relationship and someone who's had a bunch of casual hookups or one-night stands. That's what men are reacting to. And look, I get that not everyone sees it this way. Some men don't care. But for those who do, it's hard to shake that feeling of being the one who pays full price for a used product. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm telling you how a lot of men feel. That's just the reality. So now you've got a lot of young guys who are frustrated. They see women giving their time, energy, and bodies to men who don't treat them well, while the nice guys get ignored or end up being the last resort. And it's not just about sex. It's about feeling undervalued, like who they are as men isn't respected. But here's the truth, and this is what I tell young men all the time. You have to become someone that a woman wants to be with. You need to have a life that's worth joining. And let me be clear, a woman isn't going to be with you just because you're nice. That's not enough. If she's giving herself to another man quickly, whether that's emotionally or sexually, it's because he has something she values. That might be looks, status, charm, ambition, money, or just the way he makes her feel. You need to figure out what value you bring. What's your purpose? What's your mission? What are you building? Now, when I was younger, especially as a black man who loved reading, comic books, and Russian literature, I didn't really fit in with my peers. I didn't match the cultural mold of what was seen as cool or desirable. A lot of the girls in my community didn't want to talk about deep ideas or philosophy. They wanted someone who could entertain them, not challenge them. I was told more than once that I overthink things. So in that community, I wasn't celebrated. I wasn't valued. And that's a tough pill to swallow, because women are very sensitive to how society views the men they date. They want someone who elevates their social status, not lowers it. So if a woman can't proudly take you around her friends and say, "Look at my man," then she probably won't choose you, no matter how kind, smart, or loyal you are. Now, I'm not saying women are shallow. I'm saying they're tribal, very group-oriented. Their choices are often influenced by how their social circle perceives them. So I had to leave that environment. I had to find a different culture where my values were appreciated. And when I did, suddenly, I became the catch. Same person, different community, different result. That's the beauty of the world we live in. Cultures vary, standards vary, So if you're not accepted in one space, you can move to another. You're not stuck.